Hey everyone, Shihan Miller here, and we're here with our next Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. Of course, it's Wednesday. Here we are. Unless you're listening to a recording or watching a recording, it's Wednesday, right? As a matter of fact, as I'm doing this, what is it, April 20th of 2022. So anyway, did I lure you in with the title for this one, right? Joint locks made easy, right? Or made super easy, right? I know it should probably say joint locks made easier and all that, because my goal is to help you get to where you want to be as quickly and as easy as possible. But, and I tell my students this all the time, I never, ever, ever said it was going to be easy. It's going to be worth it, but my job is to make the path for you easier than it was for me. It's kind of like every generation makes it easier for the next one, but we can only go so far with it before what? We're freaking doing it for them. Anyway, so, and we're not going to get started on that stuff. Anyway, we'll talk about this little link that's down here. Where the hell is it? It's over there, right? The Friday virtual training. We're going to be doing more of this next time. But anyway, let me find my little magic markers here. See, these are the magic ones because, like, you can erase them, right? When I was growing up, magic markers was a brand name, but there was nothing magical about it, because if I wrote in the damn wall, my parents had to wash the wall, or I had to wash the wall, and I got it beaten, and then whatever, right? So anyway, all right. So we're going to take a look at this idea of kansetsu waza, right? Kansetsu is another one of these Japanese words that can be translated into different things, right? But kansetsu, with the kanji that we're using to write this thing, right, means joint, implies, right? Kansetsu waza. Waza can mean technique or skill or whatever, right? So joint technique is more of a literal translation, but it implies joint locking, right? So locks, holds, controls, those kind of things, right? Kansetsu. So, but I have a question for you, right? We're going to start this off with a question. What if joint locking, or trying to lock any given joint, wasn't necessarily about that joint? Would that make a difference in how well or how quickly you could learn it or do it, or how much power or effectiveness you could put into the joint? I bet, but maybe that's just me. Okay. So before I jump into the joint things, because we're gonna be jumping around, we're gonna be looking at anatomy and physiology and all this, and all in the shortest amount of time period, all right, time possible, right? And then I'm gonna let you go about your business, and hopefully you'll figure it out, right? Anyway, but before we do that, right, I'm gonna do something here that I do in a lot of my seminars and whatnot when I'm approaching a concept, because when we're looking at mastery, any aspect of mastery, in this case, it's joint locks, right? We're really diving into the realm of like learning and knowing things. Do I have a? I don't. There's this character in our Mikyo mind science, right? This character in our Mikyo mind science. It's this guy up here, right? I mean, normally this is Dainichi Nyorai, but in some renderings, he's in the guise of this character called Kongo Sata. Kongo Sata. In Sanskrit, it's Vajra Sattva, right? Kongo Sata, Diamond Thunderbolt warrior, Diamond Thunderbolt superior being, however you want to translate that, right? He has these two implements, right? One in each hand, right? In one hand, right, he has a kane, a bell, right? And what that represents is the expression of truth, okay? In the other hand, there's this Kongo, Vajra, whatever you want to call it, right? It's a Diamond Thunderbolt, this little implement kind of thing, right? Lots of different versions of it, but it represents truth, that which can be known, okay? So this character is kind of a synthesis that a lot of us may be able to relate to, right? It's both the teacher and the student. It's the researcher and the inventor kind of thing, right? So in one hand, there's that which can be known. And in the other hand, there's the expression of that which can be known, right? But see, there's this common word that I keep using, right? Known, okay? Because if we're looking at everything there is to be known, right? And maybe you've done this exercise with me, so if you have and you're watching the recording, just fast forward, right? So if we're looking at the realm of everything that we could possibly know, right, as ninjutsu practitioners, martial artists, self-defense people, hell, human beings, right? Okay. And I'm going to be very, very generous here, right? We're just going to cut ourselves out a pie slice, okay? And then what I'm going to do is we're just going to, now normally I would have you doing this, but it's kind of difficult with this format to have you doing it. So hopefully you can see that. Can you see that? I think you can see that, right? So what we have is a quarter of it cut out. And again, depending on you and how long you've been doing this, could be a little bit bigger, could be a lot smaller, whatever, depending on your experience with the world and your willingness to get out and look at things that are outside of confirmation bias and all that kind of crap, right? So anyway, so we're just going to play in this one for a minute, okay? So in one of these, right, we're going to write the known. No, I didn't stutter. The known. That's an N. You got to put up with my crappy handwriting when I do these things, right? So the known, right? Okay. This is the stuff that I know, right? I can't hear you, but name something or think about something that you know, right? That you know how to do, right? You know how to dress yourself. You know how to, I don't know, wipe after you go to the bathroom. You know how to tie your own shoes. You know how to do a certain come on, whatever, right? There's things that you know. I know how to speak a certain language, okay? And then this other section right here, we're going to write the known, unknown. Okay, these are things that you know you don't know. Okay, one for me is I know I don't know how to speak Hungarian. Right, it's a language on the planet. I don't know how to speak it. Right, I know it exists. I don't know how to speak it. Okay, there's other things that I know I don't know. Right, if you think about some things that you know you don't know, right, you'll start to come up with a couple or a list or whatever. Okay, well that's all great. Okay, collectively, this section right here is known as the realm of the known. Okay? This is collectively all the stuff that you know, right? Okay? There's a bunch of stuff that you know. I know how to do these things, right? I know they exist. I know how they do, how they work, and all that. Then there's other stuff like like in ninjutsu, right? Now this is not me. I'm just speaking for somebody, right? I know that this Kuji stuff exists, right? But other than a couple of articles here or there or whatever that I'm not sure is right or wrong or whatever on the internet, I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to use it in my life or whatever, right? I know it exists, but I don't know how to use it, right? So we'll come back to this in a minute. But the rest of this, right, is the unknown. Not only do I not know this stuff, I don't even know it exists. Okay. And this topic came up last night in one of our classes, right? And a couple of students had mentioned it because at the end of every class, I ask every single student, right? What'd you learn? Okay. And people tell me that they either learned something new, they caught a mistake that they didn't realize they were making, whatever, right? But one of the topics that came up was, I didn't even know I had this body part, let alone that I could hurt it on somebody else and use it for self-defense. Didn't even know it existed. And that's where a lot of the stuff goes in training, right? Mastery, the process of mastery, right? Becoming a master, whatever, right? Is to explore and to find mentors and teachers and whatnot, right? That will expose and shine some light on this stuff. Because the goal is to learn about this stuff, right? So that our realm of the known gets bigger, okay? Because until it gets here, we can't do anything about it. We can't use it as a tool, right? We keep guessing, right? We keep trying, right? Hit, miss, whatever, okay? So the role of a teacher or your seniors in class or whatever, right, is to point out things that you didn't know. So while I could have done this for damn near every one of our Whiteboard Wednesdays, I just thought this was a good opportunity because things can end up being kind of inside out, right? Because a lot of my students, get this damn thing done, right? So a lot of my students, they, I mean, well, most of them mean well, right? They're trying to learn this stuff, but the way we define things, and I just covered this in a past episode, right? The way we define things is actually a trap, right? At best, it's an expedient mechanism, right? The way I think about it can point me in the right direction, but if I hold on to that, I'm going to have a problem, right? If I can't see outside of that, I'm going to have a problem. All that, right? So back to my question, right? What if joint locks, what if joint techniques were less about the joint you think you're attacking and more about something else, okay? Because the reality is we have basically two types of joint locks, right? We have joint locks that you're actually affecting the joint you're touching, right? And we have a whole other set where you're affecting a different joint or something else in the system. Okay? What you're doing is important, but let's take an arm bar, for example. Muso dori, right? Muso, nothing alike, dori, catch, seize, whatever, okay? That should hint as to why this thing might be called this way, because there's how many freaking ways to do it, right? But in one of the forms that we have from one of the schools, right, when they grab, right, you shift and your hand goes right here, right, to kind of catch things, and then you do, again, different things to kind of make that happen and whatnot, right? So students often, they can't figure out why sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes he can get out, sometimes he's too strong for me, whatever, right? What they're really saying is, I don't know why this is not working, or I don't know why it's not working consistently, right? So what we're going to have to take a look at today is some anatomical structure, right? A little bit of physiology. No, you don't need to be a rocket scientist for this, right? And we need to take a look at what I was taught was the core goal of like 80, 90% of your techniques. And I don't care if they're striking techniques, what most people call grappling techniques, whatever, okay? And we're not going to go into this deeper concept where one of my teachers taught me that we don't have grappling in taijutsu. I know people use the word grappling all the time. What do you mean? We're grabbing somebody. That's grappling. No, there's kamae footwork and striking, which is limb extension and retraction. No, okay? What we call grappling is a combination of two or more of those things. Because the body's supposed to be doing the work, not the limbs. It's taijutsu, T-A-I, tai, right? Kanji, tai, body, right? Not ude jutsu, ude, arm, okay? It's taijutsu, right? So we'll take a look at some of these things, right? But we need to look at the joints and we need to look what's going on. But let's take a look at this musodori, right? Most students, because the arm goes here and this other hand comes over here, right? And we're doing this little shift and this adjustment that rolls the humerus, right? The upper arm bone in the AC joint, does this number to it, right? Gets the elbow up and then we apply downward pressure on it. Then, well, see, the elbow is the focal point of the technique. No. Musodori is not, it has nothing to do with the elbow. The elbow's involved in the technique, or at least this way to do it, right? But musodori is this joint being displaced forward in the chest, straining against those two bands that hold it in place at the front this way, so that he can't turn his torso in that direction. Is the elbow important in making that happen? Yes, of course. But it's not about the elbow, right? If you don't have this displaced as you enter, no amount of pushing on that frickin' elbow is going to do anything other than make him dance around like he probably already does, or slip out. The reason he can slip out is because his shoulder's not locked. Okay? So what we call an arm bar, because we got this thing and we're cranking against it or whatever, right? Watch what I just did. Okay? It's not about this. If it were about this, we'd be breaking it. We'd be moving the arm into a position where the shoulder couldn't adjust for the slam we're about to create to the back of this joint right here. Actually, it's not the back of the joint. That's the center of the joint. Okay? I know. Mommy and Grandma taught us that was the joint. Okay? That's your elbow. No, that's the point of this bone. Okay? The joint itself, the space between this bone and these two bones is right there. So when this guy grabs me and I shift and my hand comes up, the point of this hand is not to keep his elbow from bending. The point of this hand is a monitoring hand. It's to find that space. So if my hand is like this, it's going to cover a broad space. So I will know where the point is, where the rest of the ulna bone is, where the space is. I'm trying to find the space, and I need to be able to do it by touch and intuitively. Okay? Because if I try to push this way against somebody's joint, there's nothing in here to be strong. Okay? So it's really a leverage thing. Okay? And besides that, let's think about this for a second. Okay? And I know I'm using Musodori. You're going to have to carry this to other techniques. When I put my hand here, if I start to apply pressure, what's he going to do? He's going to resist that. So now he's using these big shoulder muscles and these big back muscles to do this, and I'm trying to use the extension of my pec muscles and little to nothing else right here to do that. He's going to be fighting this. So if his muscle system is bigger than my muscle system, there's no way in Jackson's hell that I'm going to be, I don't know what the hell that is. But anyway, there's no way that I'm going to be able to push against this. So maybe, right? Either we misunderstood and the teacher was explaining it correctly, or what you learned from somebody who said, well, to keep that from happening, you got to be stronger than him, or you got to be faster than him, or you got to be trickier than him, or maybe you just need to do it right. Maybe you just need to stop doing it like a freaking caveman and apply enlightened self-protection techniques like we're being taught, right? So my hand comes up here to find this. I distract. This hand comes over, because when this hand comes over, I'm going to put the center of this hand and my strength line, my power line, right where that point is. So my hand could be here on his arm. My hand could be here on his arm. My hand could be here. Doesn't matter. What I'm trying to find is that. So when this hand comes over, it's going to go on top of my hand, wherever that needs to be, to affect the center of the joint. Now that I have it, yes, that'll roll the joint over. But that joint's going to roll a whole lot better once it's displaced and the whole system is weak. Right? It's one of the ideas behind gyaku waza, right? Gyakute, omote gyaku, ura gyaku, gyaku, right? Reversal. Okay? What are you reversing? Well, no shit, sensei, we're reversing the hand. No, you're not. You're reversing the power and strength structure of his system. When you reverse that, he's now not wired to be strong that way. So now you're stronger, even if you're not. Okay? So I want to find this, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold that point in place as I walk past it. So what did I just do? Okay? Upper arm, point of the elbow, lower arm, right? I know. You got to put up my bad drawing too, okay? So my shoulder is right here. We're just going to, don't worry about face and head and nose and all that kind of stuff, right? Anyway, shoulder's right here. So if my hand is holding this and I'm holding this joint, right? Not that, right here, okay? Right behind it. I'm holding that so that he can't bend it. How do I apply pressure in a way that breaks any kind of superior strength he has? It's called leverage. It's like a crowbar. My hands are right here. One is here. He's fighting this one. So it's going to be very, very difficult for you to, this is not an arm wrestling contest, right? I don't want to chance him winning or me winning, right? That's freaking caveman thinking, right? Well, let's see what happens. Now, screw that. This is survival, right? I didn't get involved in a martial arts so I could see what's going to happen, so I could play in contest. This is fucking survival, right? So This is not about hoping for the best. This is also not about fair fights. Nobody's going to pick you out of a crowd because they think you can kick their ass. Nobody does that, right? So my hands are here. This hand is the one doing the technique, but it's not really doing a lot. What it's doing is keeping that joint from bending. And then what I'm going to do is sidestep that way. So when I sidestep that way, it's going to carry his arm this way. Well, it's going to carry part of it because we're holding the elbow so it doesn't. And then we end up with a seesaw kind of effect, right? Everybody's been on a teeter-totter, seesaw, whatever, right? Okay? There's him. There's the shoulder I want, right? There's his elbow, right? Fat kid drops on the friggin' teeter-totter and sends to create this, okay? So the first thing we need to be clear about when we're doing joint manipulation, joint locks, joint techniques, kansetsu waza, which freaking joint is being affected? What's the central focal point of the technique? Okay? So where most people think that they're locking the elbow, you're not locking the elbow, you're displacing the shoulder. See why he's not supposed to be able to beat it? Because if you're touching here and applying pressure here, his brain goes there. He's going to try to protect that. If you're doing it correctly, the more he tries to protect that and force into it, the more he feeds your technique. If you're doing what he's defending against, good luck. Okay? This is ninjutsu. Things are never what they appear to be. Okay? So, how do we know? Well, get a good teacher that knows how the damn things are done. But we're going to look at a couple of things here. And I'm going to jump around, and then you're going to take this stuff and you're going to apply it to your joint techniques, because I don't have time in this kind of context to go through gyakute, gyakuwaza, whatever. We don't have all that kind of time, right? So first thing we're going to take a look at it is an anatomy thing, right? First anatomy thing, right, is that you have three joints, three types of joints. Three types of joints, only three. You only have three types of joints in your entire body, okay? And they're usually, like with the limbs, there's a set of three, right? Wrist, elbow, shoulder, ankle, knee, hip. There's a set of three, and there's one of each type of joint in the system that allows for the freedom of movement. So to be strong, we need to understand how those things work and how they're compromised so that we always stay within the strong realm. And because we know how they work and how they're compromised, where they're strong and where they're not, we always move in a way that makes him operate from a weak position. For every monkey that just wants to learn where to step, where to put their hand and what the step-by-step move is, click away, right? That just keep doing what you're doing. We all wish you the best. If you want to do this so that when you get to frickin' 90 plus years old, like Hatsumi Sensei and some of these other guys, or you end up being in a terrible accident where your back is shot, your hips and knees are shot and all that kind of stuff, and you're still able to drop people that are 3 times younger than you, 3 times stronger than you into the friggin' dirt with little to no effort, maybe we can still have a conversation, okay? I'm okay either way, right? I'm here to help people who want help, not here to help people that just want to argue. Because you know what? The trolls, what do they say? Trolls do what trolls do. These are not the droids you're looking for. Move along, right? So there's 3 types of joints, right? Those 3 types of joints there's ball and socket joints, right? Ball and socket joints. There are hinge joints, right? And there are universal joints. Damn, Sensei, sounds like you're talking about a freaking machine. Yeah, I am. There's also pulleys and gears and things that are like that in the system. Do they look the same way they do in a machine made out of metal or wood or what? No, of course not, right? But the principles you learned in middle school physics or general science, it's all right here, right? So ball and socket joint, right? A ball and socket joint looks like this. There's a socket or some kind of a hollow, like a cup kind of thing, and then there's this ball-like thing, right? Toggle switches are made like this and all that, right? Where it fits in there, and it can't come back out, right? Easily, right? And then what it does is it swivels in place. So there's some limited kind of straight line motion. You can move in all kinds of different angles, right? But it can also rotate. Okay. It can also rotate in the joint this way. Okay. So it's there's a lot of range of motion, right? But it's not the strongest joint you have. Okay. It's actually the second strongest joint you have. Hinge joints, also known as elbow joints, right? Like the hinges on a door in your house, right? They only swing two ways, right? They only close or open, elbows and knees, right? So the ball and socket joints are your shoulders and your hips, okay? They're either held in place by bone structure, well, partly by bone structure, and then partly by some bands that go across to keep them from falling out the front, okay? If you've ever seen like a Grey's Anatomy, or I always highly recommend that students have big old freaking pictorial anatomy books. You don't have to have one this big, right? But big old books and stuff where you understand what the hell it is that you're looking at, and you're not just guessing, right? You're not just looking at the flesh bag, right? And, well, Sensei did this. I know what you saw him do, but what's he doing inside, right? What's he doing to the structure? How is he inhibiting the machine, right? Anyway, ball and socket joints, right? Shoulders and hips, right? Hinge joints, elbow and knee. They only close and they only open. No, Sensei, I can roll my elbow around. No, you can't. You can do this and you can do this with a hinge joint. Any movement like this is this joint moving. Right? Yeah, what about people that are double jointed? No such thing. Okay? No such thing, right? Yeah, I know a guy who can, unless you can do this in this direction and in that direction the same way, you're not fucking double jointed. Okay? You're extremely flexible. That's a whole different topic, right? Anyway, hinge joints, elbows and knees. Universal joints. Universal joints allow for movement all over the place. So it's not just a rolling kind of thing, but like all over. They move a whole lot more, right? So the bones and the structure inside this are not like this, and they're not just these things that came together and work this way, right? There's a whole bunch of little bones in here and in the ankle, right, that allow for, like, you can, roll the hand, you can roll your foot over, inside, outside, that kind of thing, right? Universal joints, right? Universal, and the way these things work is hinge joints have the most limited range of motion. But because they have the most limited range of motion, they're the strongest joints you have, okay? Ball and socket joints, way more range of motion, but we give up strength for mobility. It's the way the body's wired. We have strength for mobility. So more range of motion, but not as strong as hinge joints. Right? They seem like they're stronger because there's more muscle attachments to them, but it's not true. We have more muscle attachments because each of those muscle attachments cause a different type of movement through the ball and socket. We have fewer here because we only need a group that does this and a group that does that. Right? And universal joints, right? Greatest range of motion, weakest joints we have. Okay? I don't mean size-wise, because if you look at your hand, you still have a ball and socket joint or something that operates like a ball and socket joint. You have hinge joints, and you just don't have a universal joint. Okay? Now, the way this works is the ball and socket joint, for all appendages, unless you were born with a birth defect of some sort, right? Your ball and socket joints plug the limb into the torso. So your shoulders and your hips are ball and socket joints. Okay? We'll see who's intuitive about this as we go. Hinge joints are always in the middle. Elbows and knees. Okay? They're in the middle of the system. Universal joints are at the end. Okay? They allow for more fine tuning as we're moving and to do things, right? Okay? So they're in this order. I bet I heard somebody say, well, if that's true, then anything that we learned that we can do to the arm, we should be able to do to the leg. And that is true. It's absolutely true. A lot of the things that you learn to do to the arm, you can also do to the fingers and the toes because the joint systems are the same. If you understand how you're manipulating the joints, you can do onikudaki. You can do mushadori. You can do omotegyaku. You may not hold it this way. You may end up catching it, whatever, but you're doing the same thing. Okay? Interesting stuff. Right? So here's the trick. Well, one of the tricks, right? Here's the trick with doing joint locks. Okay? The trick with doing joint locks is that to affect any joint, say we're doing the wrist, we're doing omote ura hongyaku, whatever. To affect any joint, because remember I said some of them you're actually affecting the joint. Some you're affecting other joints. 2 examples I gave already, right? First one, musodori, right? Touching the elbow, well, technically I'm touching the elbow and the wrist, right? Or forearm, because I'm holding one thing in place. Are you guys familiar with the Om symbol in Sanskrit? You familiar with that? Okay. If you are, Om, universality, all that kind of stuff, right? This entire freaking character points at that. That is a fixed, universal, forever point in space. Never changes. Now, I can't do that and say that that point right there always changes because the Earth is rotating around the sun is rotating around the Milky Way. You get the idea, right? So it's moving, but that point always exists. My relative positioning, kuraidori, to that thing changes. All right? Very, very different, right? So every technique, and this is an important piece in Gyoko school, every technique, every move in a technique rotates or orbits around a particular central focal point. Some other class coming up, we're going to take a look at the 3 that are in the Gyoko school. And if you know what you're looking for, you can find them in the Kyonapo, right? But anyway, let's say we're talking about the wrist, right? I'm trying to lock the wrist. Have you ever taken a hold of somebody's wrist and turned it, and they did all kinds of manipulation and stuff like that, and you just, contorting or whatever, and you just couldn't lock it? So, Henka, right? We do our thing, and he turns in, so I pop him in the face instead. Okay, but I didn't lock the wrist. Okay? The problem is not his flexibility. The problem is that I didn't have control of the other 2 joints in the system. To lock a wrist, I have to have control of the elbow and the shoulder joint. What I mean by control is they can't adjust. They cannot adjust. If I have this, the moment I start moving that wrist, the lock is on. I have them. Okay? If I don't have them, he can adjust. So to control any joint in the system, you have to have control of the other 2 joints, right? Some of you guys are probably listening on MP3 and wondering if I just freaking hung up. Nope, I didn't, right? So it just works up the chain, right? If I'm actually affecting the elbow, okay? If I'm affecting the elbow, I have to have control of the wrist and the shoulder. If I'm locking the shoulder, I have to have control of the wrist and the elbow. See how smart you are? That's awesome, okay? So making these things easy is not learning some other trick. Remember that dart? It's learning about shit that not only did you not know originally, you didn't even know it existed, and you moved into the realm of the known, right? Oh, shit. Now, okay. But I hear what he's saying. Duplicating might be something different. So that might be straddling somewhere between the known and the known unknown. But either way, we just moved it out of the unknown. But the cool thing is, as soon as you move it into the known and you're working with it, chances are 99.9% of attackers that ever come at you are not going to know this. Because, see, the thing is to escape locks, holds, and throws, you also have to know this thing. Because the key to escaping locks, holds, and throws, let's say I'm affecting a wrist, or this person has me in a wrist lock, right? The key to escaping a wrist lock is freeing up my elbow and or shoulder. The key to escaping an elbow thing is to unlock the shoulder, because sometimes you can do the wrist where it'll move the elbow, right, out of a locked position, right? And so it's a little bit trickier, but you can still do it, right? Getting out of shoulder lock, I need to take control back of my wrist and elbow. The elbow is the key because it's the strongest, but it also has the most limited range of motion. Okay, so again, if you get nothing out of the rest of all this that you think I just did, right? Take away the moment I found out that, holy shit, it's not about that thing. Even if it is about that thing, even if a wrist reversal is about affecting that joint, my ability to affect that joint is in direct proportion to my ability to control those. Even, I don't know if you've ever seen this one or not, but there's this joint, an Omotegyakku version in Gyoko school, right? So it's not out here like Koto, Kukishinden, whatever. It's not out here, right? It's in here, right? So you're doing the Omotegyakku and the person frees things up, right? Bends it. So what I'm going to do is shove in so this jams up against his torso, and now I'm going to bring him over. But what did I just do? He freed it up, and my first thing is not to keep trying to do the damn wrist reversal harder, faster, stronger, whatever, because any technique that's wrong, doing it harder and faster doesn't make it right, right? You could luck out, but it doesn't make it right. It makes it wrong, harder and faster. So what I'm doing is letting him do what he wants, but I'm going to do something that, again, limits his ability to use these two joints. So now everything I do to that goes directly to the effect, right? So in one case, I'm putting him in a vice and then snapping that thing that I'm trying to break, right? In other instances, I'm doing certain things to certain parts of his body, so his attention goes there. Meanwhile, back at the farm, I'm affecting a joint that, see, I'm touching here. I'm touching here. He's going to resist that, but the center of the technique is up here. It's nowhere near where he thinks the fight is going on. As Shrey Sensei would always say, good ninja idea, right? So I got one more thing for you when you go with this. And I know I'm not throwing a lot at you because these two little things, if you apply these to all of your joint locks, holds, throws, even like throws like ganseki and stuff like that, same thing, because ganseki is nothing more than a musodori, this armbar thing, that's not vertical, it's horizontal, it's lateral. Ganseki nage is a lateral armbar throw. Okay? If I don't have the armbar, I can shift in closer, and now in Gyoko school, we call this a jigoku nage, okay? Or jigoku otoshi, or jigoku dori, right? Hell hold, hell drop, hell throw, right? Throwing them into hell. Oh, so that's cool. Like if I throw them on the ground, it's like throwing them into hell. No, the space between the knee and the ground when you're squatting, that triangle is jigoku. I'm throwing him into that so I can kneel on him and pin him down. Or do a technique like rakudai, thunder from heaven, where I take my body weight and drop it on a point, my knee, my elbow, whatever. Okay? It's very, very different, right? So one more thing. I got this from a teacher way back. Oh, my God, way back, right? So one of the questions in class is why I ask you guys questions, right? Because I need you to think about this stuff, right? Everybody stands around. It's like they're at a soup kitchen. They're poor and they're a soup kitchen, and they've got a tray or a bowl. Please, sir, may I have some more? They don't use those words, but that's what they're doing to the teacher. They show up and expect the teacher to fill up their cup so they can go what? I don't know. I have it. I got the kata. What the hell else is there to do? I don't know. Spend the other 99.8% of your time figuring out how and why that works. And stop expecting that because he learned it and is explaining it to you, that somehow is going to magically transfer ability to you. You can understand what somebody's saying and you can understand the science behind it, but doing it could be something completely different. Okay? So 80, 90%, let's be conservative. We'll say 70%, right? But it's closer to 80 or 90% of all of your techniques The primary goal of everything that you're doing goes to two things. Since we're talking about joint locks, this is your litmus test. This is your litmus test to know whether or not you're doing it right. Right? So you don't stop in the middle of a technique and look over at sensei and go, okay? You'll know whether it's right or not, because you need to know on the street, on the fly. The sensei's not going to be behind that freaking Chevy or Cadillac or Volvo or whatever in the freaking parking lot going, oh, shit, we need to work on that in class. Okay? Two goals. Seize or lock the spine, which in and of itself immobilizes the feet. If he can bend, you don't have him. If he can step easily, you don't have him. Doesn't get any easier than that. Okay? That's why your shit's not locking, because if he can move and contort, he can move his body to a different alignment and get his elbow and shoulder back or his wrist back or whatever. Okay? If he can step, it's like when people are trying to do an arm bar, right? And their partner's just, right? Or they're doing a whatever, right? They're doing these techniques and their partner's just kind of running around, ends up being like a monkey on their back, right? Well, he can fucking walk. Excuse my language. I know YouTube's going to ban me again or something, right? Anyway, if he can walk, if he can move, not only can he escape what you're doing, but he can kill you while you're busy trying to do something that's not working. Okay? So everything. I want you to take this all the way to your strike defense techniques too. Okay? And see how that movement locks their spine. And when their spine locks, they can't move their feet. And if they can move their feet, because you'll get these cocky assholes in class and stuff that go, yeah, I can move my foot, right? Making these little freaking adjustments, right? Yeah, I can move my foot. That's not what I'm talking about, jackass. Okay, what I'm talking about is he can't move, right? This is not a locked spine, because in this position, I can move, okay? The locking, and I learned this after a really, really bad traffic accident. Ended up with brain damage, 2 whiplash damages along my spine. And let's see, that happened at the end of September of 2007. So a while ago, right? April of 2008, way within the healing window, right? I had a Japan trip planned, okay? This is the difference between me and a whole bunch of other people. So Hatsumi Sensei, a bunch of my mentors, the people that I hold in high esteem, right? That this is not just about being able to do moves like them. I want to live like them, make decisions like them, right? And one of those things is, that's fucking important. I'm broken? Well, I'll figure it out. Okay? So I went to Japan. Ended up in Ishizuka Sensei's dojo. Now, this was a time when, at a certain point, if I was crunching numbers, using a whole lot of brain work, trying to figure out tactics and strategies, whatever, or just too much physical stuff, the electrical system would backfire, glitch, and my brain would go into not Zen mode, mode. Like I literally could, everything was just a blank slate, couldn't think. Okay? So this was starting to happen in one of Ishizuka Sensei's classes. So I kind of stepped back and, I'm going to have to just watch from over here. And he comes over and he says, so what happened? So I explained this accident. And he said, oh, so I ended up with this bulging disc in my spine, and it bulges on the spinal cord side. So when it bulges, and if it touches a thecal sac, that's this protective sac around it, right? My back hurts. I mean, it's like this major cramping kind of thing. If it pushes farther than that and pushes the thecal sac into the spinal cord, I don't feel the pain back there. It feels like somebody just took a metal spike and shoved it through my chest, and it's sticking out up here. It's interesting, right? Wow. Anyway, so I explained this to him, and he said, oh, so where is the damage? Okay. Well, the damage is in the disc between T8 and T9, middle of thoracic. Okay. He said, this is wonderful, right? You can learn something about your techniques that no one else, that they can assume, they can guess, but you can now know. May I show you? Sure, Sensei. I was kind of tentative because I don't need more damage. And he goes, I'm not going to hurt you. I won't damage you. But this will hurt. But what's going to happen is you're going to feel something that no one else can feel. And so your accident actually is a blessing. So what he proceeded to do for the next 10, 15 minutes is apply omote gyaku, ura gyaku, hon gyaku, muso dori, onikudaki, musha dori, and every single one of them as a crux in my back caused T8, T9 to do this, that caused the spine at that junction to do this. And I only felt it because that put strain on a damn disc. So when you're doing this and your partner in soft training, right, is bending for you, it's not right because he can move. His spine is not locked. Your lumbar flexes like that. When you get this right and you lock T8, T9, that's what it means to seize the spine. When you get this right, the center of the chest does this. It shoves forward and the upper mid back feels kinked. And he's either up on his toes or the knees could be bent and he could be lowered or whatever, but they can't move their feet or they can't move their feet very well, right? All your techniques. That's your litmus test. Okay. Not only do you have to have these things controlled, but you control them to the point where that happens. When that happens, his body can't fight back as well. All that major strength doesn't work because his body's backwards. Tiny little minor adjustments, okay? Little things that make big differences. Huge, okay? So 3 types of joints: ball and socket, hinge, universal, in that order. Connected to the body, ball and socket. Middle of the system, elbow or a hinge joint, right? End of the system, universal. Same thing for the leg. Ball and socket, hinge, universal, right? It's the same. To affect any joint, I have to have control of the other 2 pieces, okay? If I don't, he's going to be able to slip and get out, right? And then I've got to do Henka. Anybody that has to fall back on Henka a lot, not that they don't have skill, but they're incapable of doing the kata. They're incapable of doing the basic. I understand Henka, but Henka's a crutch for way too many friggin' people, right? It became the bullshit out for sloppy taijutsu. Anyway, but everything, especially in your Kansetsu Waza, but most of your Daken Taijutsu and Koppo Jutsu stuff, right? Your strike defense stuff, right? 2 goals in this order: seize the spine to immobilize the feet. That's the goal. That's also your litmus test. If you do that, and joint loss gets super, super easy because I'm affecting things that he doesn't know I'm affecting because he's chasing the wrong thing. I'm attacking things he doesn't know exist or doesn't know how they work properly because he's just been a modern educated caveman, right? And I'm attacking things in a way that take him at his core, not just get limited to one little thing. Like everybody learns how to do wrist reverse, twist the wrist, and then he kicks you in the nuts, right? Or go to twist his wrist and he's really, really strong because I'm trying to do this with open joints, misalignment. I'm out of my power triangle, and I'm going to try to do this to somebody who's trying to beat, break, or kill me, who has me this way, which is inside his power triangle, has all of his guns flexed and all that, and I'm going to try to do some bullshit move. Excuse me. That only works most of the time in the dojo. And the only reason why it works is because of this dreaded disease called dojo syndrome. As long as we all do it the same way and we do it the right way, see, that's what, and then we believe that bullshit's going to work on the street against somebody who couldn't give a flying shit about your stuff, right? So we all get to feel warm and fuzzy because we're all on the same sheet of music. When the reality is all we're doing is predefined dance moves. We all feel good because we're all doing the same thing, Meanwhile, back at the farm, we haven't done to their body what the techniques are supposed to do. Your job is not to win or lose. Your job is to break down, and that doesn't necessarily mean physically break it, right? But to render another human body inoperable, permanently or otherwise, right? Incapable of getting at you in as few moves as possible. 10 seconds or less, 4 moves or less. But these are the critical things. These are the ones that Hatsumi Sensei always talked about, right? First move or two are the most important. After that, you can do whatever you want, right? So all the Henka people, hey, jazz hands and be happy, right? But that's why when we're doing certain things, we're moving out into a certain position. We're moving their arm into a certain place before we start cranking on the wrist. Everybody hears wrist twist, which is a bad freaking translation anyway, right? Or wrist reversal or gyakute or whatever. And immediately, like monkeys in a freaking cage waiting to do the right trick so they can get a banana. Right? Just come on, man. Right? Anyway, all right, that's what I got. It's going to make your joint locks easier, right? Whether you apply it, whether you start to explore it or anything, that's entirely up to you, right? But this is what's going to do it. Understanding how the system works so that you can manipulate things against the strength, not fighting the strength, right? And understand what the end game is. Well, the end game is a broken wrist. Yeah, I can break his wrist when I put him into a position where he can't move, he can't unlock this, he can't move the joints that would save it, and then from right there, snap it. But as long as he can adjust all the way to his feet, as long as he can adjust, it's a battle. It's a contest. This is not a contest. Jackwagon jumps me, not a contest. Right? It's a survival situation. Because I'm not volunteering to step into a ring for a let's see what happens and risking my life and limb. And I know that might make me a pussy to some of you guys, and I'm okay with that, right? Because this one's tucking his grandson into bed, and grandson Stellan doesn't care how grandpa got there. Okay? My job is to keep my body operating in strong positions, and the older I get and the more arthritis sets in and all that kind of stuff, the more I've got to be dead on the money, or I will be fucking dead with no money. You get the idea, right? My job is to understand how this system works, the human system works, so I can keep this one operating in the strong zones and force him, no matter how big, strong, agile, skilled, whatever, I can force him to operate from a position where his body is just not as strong, it doesn't operate well, whatever. That's why we're at the top of the food chain. Right? If it was all about strength, speed, and all that, fucking saber-toothed tigers would have eaten us a long time ago. And that's all there is. Right? So if you want to see more of this stuff in action, this Friday, 6 p.m. So what is that? The 22nd, April 22nd. Go to this URL right here, the Friday virtual training, onlineninjaacademy.com. Go to that page, and you can actually sign up for about a 75 to 90 minute class that we're going to be doing, exploring some of these things so that we can take a look at everything I just covered here, right? With some technique examples, right? And we're going to take a look at how this stuff works. So if you want to jump in on that, that'd be great. If not, this is a whole lesson. Go handle it, right? Otherwise, for $4.99 US, right? $4.99, you can jump in on this. You get forever access to the recordings and stuff. Love to see you there. If not, it's okay. I wish you well. A lot of people, they sign up for it or whatever, even though there's work or family or whatever else going on, they sign up for it because they're getting the damn recording, right? So they're getting a lesson. This is the cheapest you could ever do anything to train with me other than these little freebie things that I do, right? But to actually get feedback, because we're on a Zoom call, right? So you can actually ask questions. If there's something you don't understand, if there's something you need to see more of or whatever, right? I'll walk right up to the damn screen and show you exactly what we're looking at, okay? I'm going to show you 3 different locking directions out of 5 possible to lock a wrist, doing a wrist reversal on Friday, okay? And the more of those you have going on at one time, okay, the better off things are. But anyway, we take a look at that. If we see it, great. If not, you can't sign up for it and buy it after the fact. So if you change your mind and it's Friday at midnight or it's Saturday, Sunday, whatever, right? early registration. Those are the people who get the recordings, because we're going to be using these things for other training down the line, and they're not going to be $4.99. Okay. So you should say, all you care about is money. No, that's not true. Okay. Because that would be not giving a shit whether or not you got it right. Just buy my shit. Okay. It's not true. However, I spent almost $500,000 in the last 42, 43 years getting this stuff. Why the fuck should I give it to everybody else for free? And I was poor, so figure it out. Just like everybody else. Take the lessons, do what you need to, and go to town. Or don't. Okay? I'm sure there's somebody else out there that will teach you how to tweak a wrist. No big deal. All right? Anyway, but if you can make it, that'd be awesome. And if I just turned a bunch of you off because of what I just said, okay. I'm okay with that too. Because then we wouldn't work well together as a teacher-student anyway. Because I'm not here to tell you what you want to hear. I'm here to tell you what you need to hear so that you can save your ass or a loved one's ass when their ass is on the line. And that's the way it works. Okay? I'll see you next time. Next Wednesday. Train correctly. Not hard. Just train.